are live. Eric Butler, we are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I gotta vote for Trump, dude.
It's great here, a lot of fat chicks and a lot of screaming.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate.
Hola. Buenos dias.
Donde está la biblioteca?
Where is my library? Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com, UnAuthorizedOpinions.com. I hope my volume is loud enough today. We've got so much great stuff to get to, disturbing things to get to. And Eric and I, as usual, talking about the weather. It's stupidly hot there. It's getting hot in here. I'm sweating a little bit in here. Got my soccer jersey on. Hopefully that'll wick some of it away. But
yeah, more important than the weather here is, of course, the bad drivers in Arizona. And I had some car trouble this week. Very frustrating stuff. But yes, it is very hot too.
I too had some poor driving that I was subjected to today in a parking lot of a Canadian Tire, which I don't know what to call it. It's basically just a different Home Depot, I guess you could call it, with a lot more outdoor stuff, I'd say. But the driving in the parking lot was wild. That's neither here nor there. Today we've got, this Gen Z activist who debated Nuance Bro a little bit and went to the hospital. We'll get to that in a second. And we'll get to what group he's a part of. We've got Joe Biden making what I'm calling at least his top 10 worst, fumbles, word problems. He couldn't speak for a full minute. Then we've got for later in the show, even though we're already demonetized, shout out YouTube. I don't know what word it was. Gen Z, maybe hospitalized, maybe debate is bad on YouTube. We've got a wonderful person of the Transformer community on a subway or a Toronto bus doing something weird. We've got the NAACP and more San Francisco stuff. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share the screen. This was on Tim Pool's Timcast IRL. I think it probably happened on Friday. I'm not sure, but the video was posted today. And Tim Pool is playing the Twitter Spaces which Nuance Bro is, smartly, he's kind of become the Twitter Spaces guy, I feel like. One of the people who's on them a lot and gets a lot of clips out of it, frankly, by getting Gen Z people on there and leftists on there. And this is a guy of some kind who's on there. Let's see. His name is Jeremy Mochemi. He is a 21-year-old Texas Democrat. He's passionate about fighting for social justice and equality with a rainbow and a blue heart. And he's a serial content creator for Gen Z for Change. And we'll look into them a bit after. So this is going to be like the first 3 or 4 minutes of this video, which we can just watch and let me know if you need me to pause.
Media content creator being destroyed so bad in debate. He admitted himself to the emergency room and then posted photos of him at the hospital with an IV in. He claimed in a Twitter space hosted by Nuance Bro, we've had on the show before, that 30% of the entire black population are unarmed and killed by the police every year. Yes, he is. This is from Gain of Fauci on Twitter. Yes, he is claiming that over 13 million unarmed black people are killed yearly. Okay, the first thing I want to say is Nuance Bro swears every other word in this clip. Normally, we try to be family friendly with no swearing, but there's going to be a lot of swearing for you now because I do think you need to hear this. To this young man, Jeremy, who admitted himself to the ER, I will simply say, I hope you're doing better. You need to breathe in. The internet is not that serious. If people are criticizing you online because you were wrong about something, it's not the end of the world. Bro. You can always go play some soccer and breathe some fresh air. And maybe this job's not for you. But I think there is something profound in this moment that is worth talking about. So I'm going to play for you now this clip from Nuance Bro on Twitter and then show you the chain of events which led to the leftist losing the debate so bad he went to the ER. All right, we'll play it.
No. You're telling me 13.2 million black people are getting shot and killed unarmed every year.
There's context to that. There's definitely context to those numbers.
Dude, you're fucking crazy, dude. That's like a fucking Holocaust. And dude, every black person would be dead in like fucking 3 years. Like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. What are you saying?
Yet we're still dying
Dude,
in
you know what
record
the actual
numbers
answer
more
is?
than white.
Jeremy, do you know what the actual answer is? Because I actually have the real numbers. You've clearly never done it. This is I'm fucking.
This is like 2017 stuff, Eric. The unarmed numbers are thousands. Remember when people would go and do those streeters where they'd ask people how many black people they think were killed in police interactions every year, and people would say like, I'd say like 1,000. Some people would say 10,000. Some people would say a few hundred. And I think 2017 was 19, and it hovers around that between 10 and like 22 every year. I also think, listen to the way Nuance Bro speaks here. I feel like he's trying to put on a bit of a Dave Portnoy. I think that's what he's going for here in his demeanor.
Mind blown right now, dude. The real number by Washington Post, keep tracks of this. Unarmed black people shot by police, men and women. It's usually like 10 people, dude. It's like 10, maybe like 20 in a year. Sometimes it's like 8. You know,
average is 19.
It's like
10 or 13 million.
Like 22, maybe. Like that's what it is. Not million. Like
I want to pause real quick and point a few things. This individual, Jeremy, is a content creator for Gen Z for Change, which is a liberal political action social media group.
Okay, I kind of feel like
we'll get to that. Yeah, so basically he tries to concede. I just realized we're in like an Inception here.
Exactly.
Podcast within a podcast. So this guy, and we'll bring up his page. He's like, well, maybe not 20 to 25%. Maybe 15 to 20% is a fair compromise. Like, it's like he didn't even take in the fact that he said, it's like 15.
They have zero grasp on reality at all. None of that.
He was taking his stats and I'm taking my stats. And would it be fair to go 15 to 20%, which would still be like, what did he say? 30 or 13 or 15 million or something in there?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is just the epitome of successful brainwashing.
13 million.
So he can't even get through his thick skull that the numbers, you can drop it from, 20 to 30% to 15 to 20%, and he still doesn't even make the connection of how many millions of people he's talking about. It doesn't register because he's been so successfully brainwashed. And he can talk about, well, did you notice that one of the first things he said in that clip at least was, well, there's context to that. He doesn't even know what that means. So for him to say, and I think that part kind of slid under the radar a little bit. For him to come back at Nuance Bro and say, well, there's context to that. He's only been taught that we can weasel our way, we can twist ourselves into these, do these mental gymnastics and twist ourselves into a pretzel trying to make it work. But there's no correlation for him between the word context and actually explaining something. There's no correlation between, 15 to 20% and the actual amount of people that actually constitutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't know. All he knows is the talking points. This is like why back in our day, when we were young, you kind of had to show your work. This is proof that he can't show his work. He's just memorized something that has been foisted on him, and he can't put the dots together. He doesn't know how detached they are from reality because he's never had to. And this is another reason why we constantly see discussions of all types, whether this, I guess it's called Twitter Spaces, whatever. I guess this is, and I didn't see anything longer than this clip, but the bar has gotten so low that these people will even get congratulated and be given credit just for having a discussion because even that is outside of their realm of being. So yeah, too bad, bro. Go to the hospital. Suck it up, dog. Like it's ridiculous. There's no reality left.
Well, I wanted to get to that, and I would show it from his own page, but I'm pretty sure he deleted the stuff. And we'll show Tim Pool showing it here, actually, because he goes to the hospital. He says his heart's racing, which denotes to me, I'm no scientist, but some sort of a panic attack, anxiety attack. Goes to the hospital, and then posts in the hospital like this is just like, it's the most victim mentality things. Like, I'm in the hospital because I couldn't handle being wrong, but let me just use me being in the hospital to try to get clout at the same time.
And that
probably resign. This is not the job for you.
See, he says, okay, it's not the job for him. But we're talking about that Twitter Spaces. I'll be honest, I've never used it, but we're not even talking about obviously they're not in person. They're not face to face. There's no camera. It's literally just your little emoji or your little avatar and some laughing emojis and stuff. So we're not even talking about a face to face conversation. So imagine what happens to that guy, the crippling fear that might happen to him if he finds somebody in person.
Oh, they'd call the cops. It's happened before for people. Will Witt had people call the cops on him. Anyways.
Not been a good night. Going to the ER. He then posted a picture of himself getting an IV. And then
I couldn't find this IV picture. And and like, look, he posted a picture of himself in the hospital, like, oh, poor me. Let's have peaches on my cheeks. Like, I'm pretty sure he deleted all this. I went back
That's gotta be a meme.
4 days worth.
That's gotta be a meme in no time, right? Like, this is the beginning of a meme. Like, you see the guy who's laid up in the hospital bed with the Apple headphones in his nose, and it's like,
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's why I checked, Eric. I looked to see, is this actual tubing and stuff? Is this guy just a really good troll being like, oh, you got me so good that I'm in the hospital? But that looks to be legit. Rest in peace, my hospital bill. So like everything's hilarious to this guy, and everything's a chance to.
What did he say to them?
Clout here.
My heart was racing so fast I had to come here. But like, what did he tell them?
I think so. Hold on.
Posted a picture of himself in the emergency room. Okay. If you have to go to the emergency room.
Yeah, this is not for you. So I went on Jeremy's Twitter. As you can see, is very popular. 2014 and 400. Who am I?
I don't think that's. Right? Is that it? I don't think that's his, bro.
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right.
Just launched by Patreon. Like, this stuff has got weeks. First of all, Marjorie Taylor Greene here. Let's talk about that another time. Yeah, people respond to him. Like, I'm sure there's still responses to him on this post or something. Offered himself because his two best friends were. You had to admit yourself to ER over losing a debate, people said. Yeah, so he just basically blew right through it, making fun of Tim Pool again.
That is funny.
And yeah, it looks like he deleted the stuff, almost as if this is not something worth bragging about. So couldn't find that, unless it's like I'll randomly scroll here. I don't think so. And then the company he works for is called Gen Z for Change, and we can open up their actual page. They have a good following, 77,000. Gen Z for Change, of course, it's rainbow everything. Gen Z activists. I like how it's not even a alphabet, gay pride, anything organization, but that's their logo. Inherently, in order for change and social justice, it has to be, pride related for some reason. Well, I guess we're not showing that. Look at their page here. Their logo inherently has pride stuff and a communist fist. So we're not even calling ourselves, a identitarian movement, but inherently Gen Z thinks that communist fist, Eric, plus gay pride flag, which doesn't have trans flag in there. I'll note the bigotry there. Inherently, that has to be in there for them. That's crazy to me. So
yeah,
I want to show this.
Is that the exact same thing as like, okay, it's apples to oranges, but that's the same thing as Joe Biden saying you're not black if you don't know whether you're voting for me or Trump, right? They just foist it out there, so it's the default position, right? So Gen Z by default is commie gays. Blacks by default are Democrat slaves, basically, right? So they just there couldn't be anything else. Like, how? I mean, that's you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, you're right. They're literally just making it the default position of anybody Gen Z and completely ignoring the idea that one person out of all of Gen Z might have a different opinion.
Well, I wanted to find something they championed against recently so that we could get a sense of what they do. And right there in the caption, we can watch the video, but it says Republicans do want to regulate corporations only if they're supportive of marginalized communities. So they're literally saying here, Eric, that Republicans only are for regulation if they know that they're anti-black or anti-gay or something like that, because that's what they would call marginalized communities, not me. Pharrell would call it like billion-dollar musicians and producers. Pharrell's got a higher standard there, but
We need more rights.
Imagine you just came up here and said the Democrats will only put money on something or regulate something if they were against, I don't know. I mean, maybe it could be true. But the fact that the only reason they can comprehend a regulation against something is because they're supportive of marginalized communities. And they're talking about Disney, Eric. They're talking about this gigantic corporation that spans the globe, makes movies, who just won a huge settlement. Like their union just won a huge bargaining deal to get raises upon raises. And they wanted autonomous control of their own regions, which they've had for 50 years or whatever. And they act like we need to defend Disney. And why do they need to defend Disney, Eric? Maybe I'm contradicting my own point here, because they are pushing the things that they agree with. Now, I don't see them as regulating Disney because they're pushing weird things. I think some of the things that Disney has done, DeSantis has come back on them for that. But in terms of them not having to adhere to the state government is absolutely insane. Something no other company usually gets. They have their own highways. They basically have their own city council, and they're upset that they have to have, like an appointed body of people as opposed to being completely autonomous. And now the big thing, Eric, is that DeSantis, and these are coming from the always Trumper peoples. And by always Trumper, I mean, no matter what he does, there's an excuse for it. It's 8D chess. And we like Trump perfectly fine, but you have to call a spade when somebody's wrong, they're wrong. So the new thing is to disavow DeSantis or shit on DeSantis when he says, we're not approving this giant campus. They had like $1 billion campus that they wanted to build, all administrative jobs, as far as I know. So you're going to have these huge campuses of Disney full of bureaucratic jobs. And yes, it's jobs, but it's all going to be, if you heard a Facebook campus, what would you think? That's the people demonetizing things and censoring things.
Fact checkers and that type. Yeah.
A Disney administrative campus. This isn't people like making children happy. This is people in corporations who these people are supposed to hate. The leftists are supposed to hate these giant corporations, these people with inflated salaries doing absolutely nothing. And then the always Trumpers come in and they say, we hate Disney. They're indoctrinating children. They're doing all this bad stuff. But you don't want to have one of their giant campuses. I'm turning into a New Yorker. You don't want to have one of their giant campuses in your country, or your state. So you're supposed to hate them, but at the same time, you're supposed to want them to have a giant, factory or mill pushing out their propaganda in your state. You're supposed to want that.
Yeah, well,
it's this on-factory situation from New York.
Well, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. How many times have we been told that, white men or old white men are the problem, but they champion Joe Biden, right? So an old white man like DeSantis or Donald Trump, that's obviously the problem. But an old white man like Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom, that's not part of the problem at all. Because as we know, every single one of their weird little agendas and talking points and narratives will undoubtedly be in direct conflict with another one of their positions. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't grow up on Disney. I don't know anything about Disney. I realize they're a huge corporation, Hulu, NBA, or ESPN, whatever. But it just doesn't really move the needle for me, mostly because I never paid attention to them. So I'm really not going to start paying attention to them now. And outside of that, look, I don't know. I wouldn't call myself an always Trumper. Like, I think if we're in this sad reality of the lesser of two or three evils, he's the choice, right? Obviously, there's a bunch of things, a handful of things that he has done wrong, mostly pharmaceutical sales. But I think this Disney thing with DeSantis, I think it is, I think it's a distraction, for lack of a better term. I know that's overused as well, but it's him doing his political game and rallying up his base and throwing some red meat to his people, his supporters, because, and I'm sure Donald Trump will be the first one to let you know this, and I remember because I took this Rona thing as hard as anybody, but Ron DeSantis is trying to sort of rewrite history and pretend like Florida was always this bastion of freedom, which it just was not, right? Like, if I recall correctly, go ahead and fact check me on this. there was one governor who didn't do any of it. And Ron DeSantis likes to pretend that it was always free. It wasn't. I was there, right? I was there. I played the game in the great state of Florida, where you have to put on a mask to walk through a horse door to go to an outdoor restaurant, right? So it wasn't Ron DeSantis. Nobody's perfect, okay? We all know that. That's not rocket science. But for me, this is just a gut feeling. I cannot prove this. It's just something that I saw from the very beginning. He's easily, as far as I'm concerned, the right-wing equivalent of Gavin Newsom. So he's not nearly as crazy, but he's just kind of slippery and slimy and an establishment hack shill that is not going to go to bat. You know, he's been in politics for too long. I don't even know what he was before he was governor. And again, he is a good governor, especially when you compare to a lot of these other people. But I don't think, I mean, Donald Trump can do this. And he wasn't even that great at firing as many people as he should have, most notably Fauci. He didn't pardon the people that most people would have liked to see him pardon. But Ron DeSantis, when push comes to shove, is not going to break the mold of an establishment politician, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the presidency race here, I can't say that I agree with DeSantis. He's supposed to announce on Tuesday. Tim Scott announced he was running on Friday. Chris Christie's supposed to declare. But I think that whether DeSantis likes or hates Trump, I think it's better for the country for him to see if Trump wins or loses and run in 2028 anyways. Like, people of Florida need you, and if you're just going to leave them immediately in some, like, the meter between Trump supporters and DeSantis supporters is way closer than like whoever's the third person. You know what I mean? Like Mike Pence or Chris Christie or Nikki Haley. So like I think
Vivek
they should just
Ramaswamy.
Vivek's pretty close to them. I'd say I'd also say, but I don't think he has any chance of coming.
Larry Elder.
He has proven that he can lose already, didn't he?
Well, in California, and let's just like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm just smearing DeSantis, but I don't think he is quite the. Of course, the media, they're pretending like he's not
God.
Well, the media is pretending right now that he's not quite as bad as Trump, but it's early. So as soon as he declares, as soon as something official happens, they're going to figure out a way to basically say that he's worse than Trump, and the whole country is going to be this way. But shout out to them, because they did dodge a bullet. And I think we've made it clear by now that I think there is a very big problem with the voting in this country. It does not seem to be. And Tulsi Gabbard, shout out Tulsi Gabbard, who was on PBD podcast. Did you see that recently?
I saw the thumbnail and I was impressed.
You
don't see totally eye to eye with her, yes.
No, I don't see totally eye to eye with her, but the clip, I don't know, it was like 15 minutes long, that she was talking to Patrick Bet-David, and I was like, maybe she's getting stronger, bro. She made some really good points about what has to happen. And look, I know, it's a conspiracy, it's all fake, you guys are crazy. If you look at any of this logically, there's no way to deny. And look, you can call it what you want, rigged or fixed or fraud or whatever you want to call it, but it's very clear that something is not right with how the voting takes place in this country. It's just not. So,
well, let's see this DeSantis clip, and then we'll watch some Biden, and then maybe we can play some of the Patrick Bet-David PBD. Let's see what they were complaining about here.
They want to have their own government, and they've had their own government for 50 years. It's massive corporate welfare. We're not doing that. They're going to live under the same laws as everybody else. They're going to pay their fair share of taxes, and they're not going to govern themselves. We the people are going to govern. And to put one corporation on a pedestal and let them be exempt from the laws is not good policy. It's not free market economics. And it's not something that our state's going to be involved in. And so we will not change from that. And so they can do whatever they want. I know people try to chirp and say this or that. The chance of us backing down from that is zero.
Thank you.
The word is pedestal, not pedestal, Mr. Governor.
But this to me reeks of very similar to what Gavin Newsom did with the National Guard. Like, he talks about it like, well, we're going to stand up to these corporations, we're going to fix this problem, but nothing's going to change. Disney is going to crush him like a bug, and I don't think they'd be able to get away with that. Yeah, dude. And they wouldn't be able to do that with Donald Trump. And last thing, I promise, shout out to Florida for at least being fairly realistic. And imagine what Florida would be like if Andrew Gillum had won. Let's just remember
Oh
that
my
for a
God.
second. Yeah, this guy caught with male prostitutes in a hotel room. Yeah, and bodily fluids all over the place. And that guy narrowly lost to DeSantis. So this is the problem that we're dealing with. What are you looking for?
They caught him while he was still passed out. I'm trying to find the images right now. There's a picture. That's not a picture. Like, they have a picture of the floor. It's not easy to find the picture.
Are you using
There's a picture.
Brave, or what are you using?
I'm using some solid Bing here. There's a picture of him laying on this thing.
Yeah. Oh,
for sure there is.
Yeah.
I'll try for 10 more seconds to find it here, but I cannot. So shout out Andrew Gillum. All right, Joe Biden had one of his worst stumbles in a while, I think. Eric thinks we've seen
maybe
worse.
Maybe I didn't watch the whole thing. Maybe I need to rewatch it because you get so jaded with these things. You're like, okay,
yeah, you just
Joe
skip
Biden.
it.
Yeah, so I'll watch it and see where we're at on the scale of Bidenisms.
Shout out the chat, Shane Davis, Booty Snorkeler, and Queen West. Thanks for watching, you guys. Everybody remember to subscribe and check out patreon.com/UOPod, where we have a secret podcast, a bonus podcast posted every week, usually Friday or Saturday.
Goes
and you
completely
get segments
off the rails.
Pardon? It does. Eric really Eric does a little Hunter Bidening in the back room, and he comes back and he goes off the walls. And then it's complete. The only way you'll get the video of it, we post a couple clips, but you get segments that nobody else sees, and for a low price every month. So please consider helping us out. That's patreon.com/UOPod, and subscribe to everything, please. Here's Biden.
There's a lot of other, for example, the idea that we're
oh, come on, love. Don't make me download it. YouTube's problem is that if you're streaming anything else, that
I was very ready for that. The suspense.
Me too. I'm sure everyone was.
And there's a lot of other, for example, the idea that we're in terms of taxes that they refuse to. For example, I was able to balance the budget and pass everything from the global warming bill. Anyway, I was able to cut by $1.7 billion in the first 2 years the deficit that we were accumulating. And because I was able to say to it that the 55 corporations in America that made $400 billion, that they pay zero in tax. Zero.
I'm extremely confused.
I'm f***ing confused, bro.
Me too.
All in all, it was quite a press conference, and one that will probably rattle the markets a bit.
That's one of the worst ones. 400, excuse me. And he says he's talking at the deficit. Obviously, he's trying to say they lowered the deficit a little bit since he came into office.
Yeah,
but that's wild, Eric.
It's bad, but it's like we've become so used to this. I don't think that's one of his worst. Like there was,
I say top 10.
Okay, all right, yeah,
I guess in the air.
We can put it in.
Put your hands up in the air. Remember that song, or was that too white for you? Put your hands up in the air. Do you know raising the roof came from some college basketball game? The first time people raised the roof. I looked into that once. These are the type of things I look into, Eric. How did raising the roof become a thing? Some sort of college thing in the 90s.
I have no idea how you've gotten to that from this Joe Biden speech, but this is why speeches like this, and we see Kamala Harris constantly doing it as well. Maybe not quite as terribly, but it's all complete. So Kamala, I think she's just doing a sort of she's doing kind of a stream of consciousness, and it doesn't make sense. Biden is trying to gain. He's trying to finish things, but he can't retain the information for long enough to get through a sentence. Whereas Kamala, like Michael Scott once said, sometimes I start a sentence and I don't even know where I'm going with it. That's what she's doing. He's trying to find threads of coherence, and he can't really do it. But this, I believe, speeches, quote unquote, speeches like this is why you can have a guy on TikTok saying that 13 million black people get shot by cops every year is because they just say whatever they want, spew it, throw it out there. Nobody's going to check it. Anybody who dares to check it will be deemed a racist, a bigot, and they still can't grasp that it has no connection to reality at all, because for them, simply saying something is enough to make it true, right? So if you say something super mean, super bigoted, like maybe I don't want to take my kid to a drag story hour, then they're going to ask you for, why do you care? Why are you so mean? Why are you so bigoted? But as soon as they say something, you just have to wear it, because the only thing that is required for it to be true is that they said it. And that's why those things are loosely connected. Is like the Democratic Gen Z for Change guy can just make up a completely random number and end up in the hospital simply for being called out on it. The same way that Joe Biden won't. Right. It's always news. It's news when Joe Biden takes questions from a reporter, right? That's not on his note card, or that or he'll say something like, "Oh, I know I'm not supposed to do that." You know, when he goes like a tiny bit off script, and that's why is because they just say stuff, and as long as it doesn't get like the city bike lady out in New York, right? They can take their cell phone video, call this lady a racist, say she's trying to harm these guys because the big mean New York City Police Department officers are going to show up and pop a cap in these young kids. It's all completely fake, and it won't get questioned. And when it does get questioned, it just goes away, right? So that woman who may or may not have lost her job, got suspended, whatever it was, based on a completely fake narrative. And when the narrative gets questioned, like I sent you some of those posts, you can read in the comments, they changed the goalpost. Well, it wasn't even about who bought the bike, it was about her screaming for help. Like, that's racist. It doesn't make any sense.
Joe Biden's brain is like a car is in a high-speed chase and they're going down like a one-lane road or a one-way street or a one-lane highway in a tunnel, and they're just desperately looking for exits. I got to get off this highway. The helicopters are flying above me. The spotlight's on me. And every time you think there's going to be an exit, there's just nowhere to go. So Joe Biden's just talking, and he's just like 400 billion and 400 billion. I mean, and the deficit, and it's like maybe my mind's going to lead this way, and maybe there'll be a number that pops in over here. No matter where his brain goes, it ends up being trapped, and the brain itself
Bumper
is
bowling.
hoping that something. Yeah, it's hoping that something's going to pop into its mind and help him out. And unless they can be on stage pumping him with nootropics and uppers and stuff, then it's out the window. Like, I imagine during the debates, allegedly, that he must have had an IV directly up his pant leg or something like that.
So who's worse? Is that worse than Fetterman? I mean, did you see
Fetterman has an
clip
actual
from the week?
medical. Yeah, Fetterman has an actual medical condition for the reason why he should not be there. Joe Biden he's old, and I guess that's a medical reason too, if it's Alzheimer's or whatever it might be. But Fetterman, we knew he had, like, I guess it might be the same, Eric. It seems meaner to do to Fetterman because Biden, he had to have been at some point coherent enough to agree to this. Whereas Fetterman is just like, we need, I keep talking about it and I don't know the difference.
So, and I guess the worst part is that no matter either way, right? We're constantly told, white people are the problem. White people are racist, but not these ones. These ones are good. And it's like, we're supposed to sit there and just believe it. Like, why would you even, like, you say there's a bunch of headlines about the Fetterman stuff, like Fetterman's question leaves Republicans speechless. So they frame it. So it seems like it's all absolutely ridiculous.
It does leave you speechless though. John Fetterman's wife is mean. Joe Biden is mean. Both of their teams are mean.
Hillary Clinton.
Everybody who voted for Fetterman whilst knowing what condition he was in is mean in a sense, because you're purposely putting this guy in because you hate Republicans or because you don't care. So there's a lot of, it's like when you watch Intervention or 600-Pound Life and you're just like, somebody's delivering you 16 cheeseburgers and two liters of pop every day, or soda. But the soda. And the person's not getting it themselves. Like, this person can't get up out of their bed. Joe Biden can't, and Fetterman can't get up out of bed without help. And you're saying, no, let's keep putting you into office. And John Fetterman shows up in a hoodie, and they're like, no, you're the cool guy in the hoodie. That's why people like you, and not the, person who has a medical condition who just looks like they can't dress themselves because it'd be too difficult to tell them to get into a suit. That's what it looks like.
And this is why, this is why I think the clip, and maybe we'll have to do it at a later date because I'll need to sift through and get some timestamps or something. But this is why what Tulsi Gabbard, who I do not trust fully, obviously.
Well, I brought this up. If you can tell me which clip.
She was talking about the FBI. I mean, it's a long clip. It's like 15 or 20 minutes, but it's that top one. The FBI weaponized by Hillary Clinton, right? Oh, it's only 11 minutes. Still kind of long for this, but basically she says in pretty blatantly that, and this is a question that we constantly discuss with, all the time, is like, who's actually in charge? Because clearly it's not Joe Biden. And she kind of, some people would say the Council on Foreign Affairs, some people would say George Soros, some people would say the DOJ itself. I don't know. But she is kind of pinning it on Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama is basically still being in charge, which for most people is a crazy conspiracy, but is it really that far-fetched? That's why I think I'm torn between Afro Man and Kanye. We'll see.
Let's see. Let's watch a couple minutes.
Report comes out.
Yes.
Okay. Mainstream media, nobody even talks about it. Everybody else is like, wait a minute, did you guys just see what happened here? Okay, this is a real thing. What was in the Durham report that people need to pay more attention to?
What I did see, first of all, from talking heads on MSNBC, and I believe even CNN, was they did talk about it, actually, maybe not much, but what they did say about it was a complete dismissal, that it was nothing of value, that it should not be paid attention to, that it was just more lies and more bias, et cetera, completely dismissing it and not actually addressing the substance of it. The one person who I would say was pretty fair in his analysis was Jake Tapper on CNN. When he talked about it, he had a fair interview on what was in the report, what wasn't in the report, and his own statement was that this was essentially an exoneration of Donald Trump. Fox News covered it, obviously. And I think overall, the major takeaway for people who don't have time to read the report or didn't catch it in the news is that it absolutely exposed the FBI. The FBI is being weaponized essentially by the Hillary Clinton camp. Barack Obama and his team were aware of it, to go after and investigate and try to undermine Donald Trump's candidacy and presidency.
I want to read this from Washington Examiner. May
Eric, would I be safe to assume you think that nothing will still happen, though, to this group of people? The spying is proven. The emails are proven. The text from Peter Strzok proven. We've got January 6th stuff. Bill Clinton, who did he meet on the airplane again? Like, this is 7-8 years now we're going back, but that's when it all started. And nothing still happened. We've got the phony Rush report. We've got the January 6th committee. We've got so many things, and nothing ever happens. Now we've got Hunter Biden, IRS stuff. We've got FBI whistleblowers. Where is the Kevin McCarthy stuff that they promised in order to get Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene on side with them? Where is that stuff?
Yeah, because they're spineless little weasels. They're little worms. And look, this is a position that I've taken for a long time. Is like, dude, the Democratic Party, the left wing, the left wing establishment is absolutely insane, out of their minds. But they are not cowards, right? On the right, you have some people who are not nearly as crazy, maybe just as greedy, but they capitulate to everything, right? And that's why we've seen that Overton window. Maybe it's moving back to the center a little bit now in May of 2023. But I mean, we're at a point where it's insane for you to just discuss. Shout out James Klug, who, they were getting assaulted out at Portland State University for literally trying to have discussions. So any of that conversation has gone out the window. And what this really reminds me of, how the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, the big players in that establishment, are now basically, oh, the FBI is wrong. Like, okay, so It only works for you, which we know. And where else did we see this? With Rona. Remember when Rona was finally starting to come to a close and they're like, okay, maybe you don't have to wear a mask anymore. And there were people who were like, well, how dare you say the mask is over? You know what I mean? They only want, they get the first narrative in there, and then it becomes impossible, not impossible, but much more difficult to deprogram them, of course, or even get the next talking point in there if it's a little bit different, right? So you can reprogram them with another outrage thing, right? So you can go from Russia man bad to Ukraine best people in the world. That's not that far fetched. But when you go from, wear 2 masks to now you don't have to wear a mask, it's much different. So when you go from, the FBI is the FBI is great, they keep us safe, to the FBI was completely lying and weaponized. That's a bridge too far, right? So it kind of shorts their circuits out and they don't know what's going on.
Are you in the camp of, I believe Vivek Ramaswamy wants to completely disband the FBI? I will say that I can't say that that is necessarily a good idea, but it does obviously have to be fixed either way. As a person who writes a lot about some of these cyber crimes and drug smuggling crimes, like I wrote about one recently where this family of Mexicans who lives in South or North Dakota were having a family drug smuggling business where they would smuggle stuff from Mexico through California, and they drive it up to the Dakotas. And like brother, sister, cousin, mother, they had grandma driving the drugs, getting arrested. And wherever that passageway is, there are people try to pass through either Colorado or Utah, I forget where it is. They always get pulled over there. That's some stuff that the FBI field offices do, and they often arrest people who are charged with, crimes against children, is how I'll phrase it. A lot of them, frankly, a disturbing amount, which I believe Trump put in motion a lot of the attack on these groups. And, you see some field offices, when I read about it, like the FBI field offices in New York, they're more focused on like money laundering from Russian oligarchs and stuff. Like obviously they have their own bones to pick, but I think you can't disband the FBI in totality. I think these people at the top need to go, and I think you need to start implementing some sort of ethics or program or some sort of course material where it's like, let's reaffirm why we're here. And it's not the original thing to, whenever it was in the 50s or 60s to stamp out communism and have the blacklist and everything, but it's to, be the people to investigate the crimes that are of the stature where they become a national problem, where they become such a large problem. A bunch of children were kidnapped, giant drug smuggling ring, insane gang activity. Like reaffirm, like that's what it's about, and not to get involved with personal requests from government officials. What do you think on this?
Okay.
Ban front.
Well, okay. First of all, I want to just answer the first question that you asked me that I may have ignored. Is that yes, of course, nothing will happen, right? So we can watch, Donald Trump farts and he's indicted, but Hillary Clinton basically committed sedition or whatever. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Allegedly, I don't know, right? She can, her and the Biden crime family, they can do anything and nothing will happen. Now, Trump will still not really face any consequences. All of these people are completely Teflon. So yes, that's the first thing, is that nothing will happen. Secondly, as far as completely doing away with the FBI, I mean, it's tough, right? So I see what you're saying, but the realist in me would say no, it's not really possible. But the extremist in me would say, yeah, get rid of it, right? The FBI is very similar to CNN, right? You can still call it the FBI. You can keep the logo, but it's rotten to the core, and you need to get everybody out of there, from the doorman to the chef, the janitor, the mailroom. I mean, the key grip, the filer, the accountant. Everybody has to go. You got to start fresh, and it's a really tough task. I don't know. I think even Tim Pool actually joked about it. Like, if Donald Trump were to get reelected, and he said, Timothy, I want you to there's very few people, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. There's very few people who could actually be trusted to move the agency in the right direction, right? It's just the waters have been so muddied that it's literally impossible to get anybody in there who's going to be trustworthy. So, and that's just human nature, right? Like, you give somebody too much power, they're going to abuse it. What is it? Absolute power corrupts or something. I don't know. Don't quote me on that these stupid quotes, but I guess to answer the questions quickly is nothing will happen. And yeah, in a perfect world, I would love to say get rid of it completely. I don't know too much about Vivek Ramaswamy's actual position on it, but yeah, they need to be done away with, because as we know, and we knew this before the Durham report, we could see this for years already, right? Remember the Mueller report, the Steele dossier, all this stuff was completely fake. And they have zero credibility, just like CNN. So they need to, I think, rather than destroying them, they will self-destruct on their own, and it's probably going to take a little bit of time, but we should ignore them, right? Like, we should literally just ignore them. Nothing they say can be trusted, and just figure out a way to stay out of jail, because they will come after. I mean, look at January 6th, right? They will come after. I bring this story up all the time. In New York, it wasn't the FBI, but it's very clear that their goal, their mission, sent from Hillary, sent from Obama, sent from wherever it is to destroy their political opponents. They are no longer I don't know how many people work in the agency. I don't know, but I would venture to say a small sliver of them are actually stand-up people.
Sliver of them stand-up comedians as well. UOPod.com. Please subscribe on all platforms if you can. Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube here. Even Getter, the folks at Getter. I don't know what's going on at Getter
Twitch?
these
Did you
days.
say Twitch?
You don't hear much out of Getter. Twitch, of course. You don't hear much out of Getter these days. I wonder what's going on over there. And if you're an audio listener on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Podcast, we thank you. Please leave us a review on there. Share it on your Instagram story. Share it wherever you can. Tag us. And we're growing. The YouTube channel's growing. I like it. I try to respond to as many comments as I can on there, especially the ones that are anti-Eric. Latest anti-Eric sentiments are still about the clown guy. And what was the other one? I can't remember the second one where they hated your opinion on it, but I'm sure there'll be more.
Oh, I'm very curious now. The suspense is killing me. I mean, look, the clown guy though, like, let's look. If the clown guy had said anything else, if the clown guy had said, "I love Joe Biden," then my take wouldn't have been so controversial, right? Like,
oh, the burner one is what people didn't like.
Oh, what did I say about burner? I forgot. I don't even remember.
You said that all rap labels are fronts for laundering.
Oh yeah, 100%. Not 100. 99%. 99. Sorry.
This is why you guys need to subscribe and watch the Patreon podcast, because you can just disagree with Eric more and more each week. I'm staring at this disgusting thing on the side of my screen here. That's just a taste. I actually pressed that accidentally. But shout out the pleb. I don't know if he's actually a reporter. He's more of a guy who goes out and yells at politicians. But this is on the bus in Toronto, and people are just watching by and standing by as this transgendered person on a Toronto transit bus is just shaving their pubes. Eric, nobody has a problem with it. Toronto is in a mayoral race right now between communist lady, comedian, anti-lockdown activist, Toronto Sun reporter for 20 years or something. And this is what they're up against. All you have to do is not vote for the crazy person. I promise you, Toronto. All you have to do is not vote for the crazy person, not vote for the communist who said she wants to raise taxes. You can vote for the guy who says he's going to end bike lanes. That'll make your life better. The traffic's insane there. You can vote for the guy who's a comedian who says, everything's going to be trans, because he's not serious, but he's actually smarter than that, and he's going to do better than what you've already got there, which is this. You can vote for the anti-lockdown activist, Chris Sky. He actually is probably going to lower taxes and do less insane things. When you have an insane society, which you have in Toronto, where this is nobody's kicking them off the bus, nobody's saying, hey, stop, that's disgusting. Some guy sitting to his right, some person sitting facing him or her, and nobody's doing anything. This is your society has crumbled. Okay, when this is allowed on a bus, society has crumbled, and they don't want to admit that. All they care about in downtown Toronto is, are we getting sidewalk painted rainbow flags? Can we get this coffee made a little bit faster? Can it have 75 different flavors? Can I go to a cat cafe? Is there a communist cafe, which actually just closed, an anti-capitalist cafe, which told people that they can pay what they feel they should, closed? Surprise, surprise. This is Toronto. It will soon turn into Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco if you do not do anything. This is Canada, frankly. Toronto's just the worst of it. Vancouver's probably even worse, but there's not as much crime. I don't think there's Asian street gangs, but I don't know. I'm not from there. I've never been there. But this is society you will get. And what I predict, Eric, last thing here to quote you, is if things do not turn around in Ontario, where the premier, the governor, is now saying, who cares about the forestry? Who cares about it? Even though he ran on it, he ran on not destroying what's called the green belt. He's saying, who cares about it now? You're stupid if you care about these lines drawn on a map. What you will see is people leaving this province like they have left California and New York. You'll see them go out west to the flatlands of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, because that's the only places left in the country where it's not absolutely insane and overpopulated. We are breaking immigration records, over 1 million people, and more than half of them come to Ontario, and they're like, what's wrong? The housing prices? We just need to build more townhouses. That's their solution for everything. More townhouses, you guys. Let's you want to be able to own a home? Well, own a townhouse with 7 people inside of it, and your neighbors have 20 people inside of it, and you can't afford it. Your mortgage is going to be like $4 or $5 grand a month, but at least you'll have something, right? We can't slow down the immigration. We can't build on larger plots of land. This is impossible. This is what Canadians want, Eric. This is what they voted for 10 years almost. This is what they will continue to vote for in places like Toronto. I have no hope. Hope is gone. I would like to leave.
Okay.
What? When I rant, Eric, it's unacceptable?
No, I hate to break
this
to you.
Burner this, and
I hate to break this to you.
Tulsi Gabbard that.
Well, here's my point. Is that, unfortunately, I mean, this is not the worst that I've seen. Kind of like the Joe Biden clip that we had earlier. Like this, yeah, it's disgusting. I wouldn't want to see that on a bus, on a train, or anything. But like, you got to understand, bro. You've seen people literally relieving themselves on trains, on the subway platform, with people walking around. So this, I mean, we already made it, bro. That's what I'm saying. I hate to break it to you. Like, it already happened. Like, this is the bottom of the slope, right? Like, shaving your pubes, bro, that's vanilla. That's 2017. That's 2018. It's a joke, bro. You have people, I mean, I was actually looking through some pictures on my old iPhone. And
guys shaving their pubes?
No, of people, of human feces. Dude, the point is, while yes, very disgusting, and a picture of the decay happening across the Western world, it's not the worst I've seen. And we already reached the peak, right? So you say, oh, well, if we don't get this ship turned around, it's gonna hit the iceberg. It's too late. It already hit, right? We're just circling the drain right now. I realize it's a very like black pill type of thing, but there's the powers that be have basically had their way. And we should have known this. We should have known this was true when they forced you to show paperwork to get into a restaurant, when they forced you to wear a mask to buy groceries, right? It wasn't that long ago. So we've already hit the iceberg, and people probably won't like that either. I don't know how we claw our way out of it. I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, well, let's just give up and let the zombies, sometimes you think like if you're in a zombie apocalypse, you're like, well, wouldn't it be easier to just let the zombie eat me and then I don't have to worry about it? I don't have to be scared anymore. But so I don't know how we continue to fight back. I'm not suggesting we sit down or we lay down and let them run roughshod over us, but this is not as shocking to me as it is to you for whatever reason. And I want to make one other comparison. about all the other problems that you guys have and that we have too. It's very similar to what we saw in San Francisco just a couple of days ago. They have crowned a drag laureate. Nobody even knows what that means. Apparently, this person is going to get paid a lot of money to be San Francisco's drag laureate, while they can't stop the fentanyl from poisoning people in the Tenderloin. They can't stop the smash and grab robberies. They can't stop the car break-ins, which I guess is a slightly different from a smash and grab. They can't stop the businesses like Walgreens and Nordstrom and Saks Fifth Avenue from fleeing. But they do have a man dressed up like a woman who's going to get paid more than $100,000 a year just because. So we already reached the pinnacle, bro. It's like at this point we can only hope, in my humble opinion, that we sort of this is going to be dark. We need to accelerate the whole thing and bounce back the other way.
Accelerationist, wow.
I mean, what are we just slow crawl there? It's like a Band-Aid, bro. Rip it off. Let's do it. Let's go back the other way. Let's hit the wall hard and go back the other way. Weird tiptoeing that we're doing to where, we're letting Joe Biden drive the country and arguably the Western world into the ground.
Shout out crash test dummies that are now women as well as men, and shout out the new Walking Dead spinoff, which looks terrible. Since you mentioned zombies. San Francisco Bay Area, we'll finish on this because I'm sweating my ass off. We made a mistake. San Francisco restaurant apologizes after hosting an anti-trans event, whatever that means. Let's watch the local news.
And they just didn't know. That from the owner of a restaurant that held a private event for the San Francisco Republican Party. An undercover reporter in attendance called it an anti-trans dinner. NBC Bay Area's Gia Vang has
more. And you printed it in the headline.
The entrance to American Bites in North Beach is tucked away from the street. It's the place where a Chronicle opinion reporter infiltrated an event last week put on by the local GOP group, calling it a secretive anti-trans dinner, listing many instances of transphobic content they endured. The restaurant has been fielding mostly angry callers since the article published Thursday and posted an apology shortly after.
Okay, before we continue, you infiltrated the restaurant. There was anti-trans things said. It's 2023. You have a phone. Is there photo, video, or audio evidence? What are they going to... Is there, Eric, or do you know already if it's coming?
I actually watched another report on this, and I did not see any. And I feel like if there were, even the other news station would have showed us the evidence.
I was going to go 65% no.
Made a mistake, and I sincerely apologize.
Oh,
That's
see.
American
For
Bites
what?
owner Mike Ceremi. He said a regular at their other
coward.
restaurant approached them and wanted to host a Republican fundraiser that would include a short documentary. He says when the group of about 100 arrived with parents and children too, he didn't know it would spiral into what it did.
As the night went on, there were some speakers, and I think they had some kind of a, fringe point of view. I wish we had known this was the subject. We would have never agreed to have that.
You can't talk about
event
that
in
here.
Our place.
Are you saying that you support trans rights?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm from the city, beloved trans, gay, LGBT community, straight, everyone. It's just, that's what's beautiful about San Francisco is about inclusion.
This is like look at the person we're about to hear from, but this is like when Principal Skinner is being held at gunpoint at the door. It was a boating accident I was involved in. Like off screen to that guy's right, there was a gun held to his head. I love everybody. LGBT, I don't even know what this is. But yes, let's see. We've still got. I'm guessing this is the journalist, the they them. Let's see if they've got evidence.
King Lotus Boy identifies as trans, non-binary, and polyam. They say there's no question what holding an event put on by Republicans would mean.
Any fundraising efforts that is going towards the GOP.
We need a speaker to speak on this news story. We need someone legitimate. We are calling on non-professional wrestler nor rap artist named King Lotus Boy. The drag artist will give us a non-biased opinion on this instead of the journalist who went there or what. This is absolutely insane. And the fact that a person had this person named King Lotus Boy on their show and doesn't see that this is insane means you should quit your job. Shout out Tim Pool. Quit your job. This is not for you. If what if I was doing an interview about a pro-trans, one of these trans events with drag queens that they sexualize children and get them to put dollar bills in them and whatnot. What if I brought on a guy who he's not a rapper, he's not a professional wrestler, he just goes in his day-to-day life as I hate trans people, and you just put that guy on the screen like, I hate trans people.tm. Seems like he's got some great opinions on this subject. He's really he's really bringing a lot of fair and unbiased points to this report. How could anyone not take this seriously? San Francisco, Eric, I'm glad you don't live there anymore.
Dude, it's through the roof. And you notice the t-shirt there, right?
Drug users deserve what
to live, I believe, is the quote. Let's finish the last couple seconds and see what Zimzer has to say.
Is fundraising hatred and is fundraising violence towards queer and trans people, full stop. Considering that
with what
the
evidence?
Majority, almost probably all of the bills that have been anti-trans, targeting trans youth and drag artists have been Republican-led.
Right now, Yelp has temporarily blocked reviews for American Bites as it monitors the fallout, but the path forward is clear for the owners.
We're going to change our policy as far as booking events. We're going to be more diligent in, just knowing who we work with.
We're going to start having a ideological litmus test for who gets to book a restaurant with no evidence that these people said anything. All he said is fringe views. He couldn't even describe one. The report didn't describe one. What's this girl's name? This girl whose face is currently falling off right now. This girl's face is barely on. It's sliding off of her face.
He did reach out to the local SFGO.
The yellowness of her face is sliding off. Gia Vang. This is one of the worst reports I've ever seen in my life.
Heard back.
And I'm sure if I watched San Francisco news more often, I would be more impressed with how bad it is.
We reached out to the local GOP and they haven't replied. Yeah, you probably gave them 15 minutes, right? Like
we reached out to the local person who says I hate Republicans, and they say that they think that this was possibly an ancient alien that helped build the pyramid. Was it ancient aliens that helped build the pyramids? It could have been, yes.
Well, this so that was, what was that, NBC or ABC? I forget, but I kind of get them confused because I watched a report from another station that was spearheaded by another guy who, I mean, they're not even trying, right? So the news reporter, like, that one, she's not as bad as the guy from the other station who is clearly a flaming homosexual, right? He's not going to be able to shoot it straight down the middle, right? No pun intended. But it's very obvious where his allegiance lies. And the great irony of this is that if somebody were to try to stop a drag show from happening, they would be labeled as all the worst names in the book. But if some regular people are having a dinner that you infiltrated and you don't even have any evidence, that you can look through hours of footage of weirdo drag queens dancing for little kids, right? And if you even show up to that with a Bible or with a sign, you will be deemed the worst bigot in the world. But if somebody has a dinner that they didn't even invite you to, you infiltrate it while they were having a discussion, and now you want to shut them down, and you are strong enough, you are marginalized enough that you trick the owner of the business into saying, I'm sorry, we won't do it again, and you don't even have proof. So we can have our event, and we're going to shove it down the throat of your kids, literally and physically, but you are not going to have one event that's going to discuss what we just did. It's all absolutely ridiculous. And while this is happening, the San Francisco news media will continue to obviously lie, be deceitful, obfuscate, and never let the truth get out, even with the headlines. It's completely despicable.
Well, I don't know how you could just, if you call yourself some sort of journalist and you're not willing to say that, I'm 100% biased against the other side, how are you just going to take this person's word for it that you don't even put on screen? I don't believe that was the person who said they infiltrated the event. They'd be pretty well spotted pretty easily. King Lotus Boy. Shout out Lotus Boy.
And the drug shirt.
You're going to air this? Yeah, you're going to air this and be like, well, we don't have any evidence of what they said, but we'll just take your opinion for it that it was transphobic. It's 1953. Yes. We only had a notepad and a press card in our cap.
Yes, exactly. And because they know, to bring it full circle here, that the only criteria for something to being true is just for them to say it. just like with the city bike lady. All we had to do is say she's a racist, and now it's absolutely true. And I know that this is kind of petty, and maybe some people won't like it, but I don't care what they think. Is that for this person to go on television wearing a shirt that says drug users deserve to live? Don't you think that's a little telling, right? Like we're getting behind people so great, so we don't care about the regular residents. We don't care about their quality of life, but the needles and the poop and the tents on the street, those should stay. And that's the activist point of view. Think about the actual junkie, right? Like, do we think for one split second that a real San Francisco junkie is going to spare that little they them from a weirdo attack or a tongue lashing, or you know what I mean?
Well, it's like you always say, Eric. Sorry to interrupt, but like you always say, it's always life or death. This person wants to pretend that other people, it says they deserve to live. Is anybody saying let's kill the homeless people? No, they're not. And this person also lives in California, where they get all their people elected that they want, in San Francisco, where they have every policy that they want, and it still fails. And you're like, oh, it must be something else that's happening. It must be the Republicans in San Francisco that had a dinner, and I can't prove anything.
And how closely tied is this heavy drug use to this? I mean, we know, look, bro, it's no secret, dating back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, or whatever, that the gay community was pretty heavy into the drugs. Okay, right? Is that a secret? Is that taboo? Is that controversial?
No idea.
They are, right? You could look and they are, okay? And it's only the next level up, right? Because that's how delusional you have to be to even believe that stuff. So obviously, I'm not sitting here and saying that every transgender person is a dope fiend, but it helps.
Shout out Duper Guy, who likes my jersey. Thank you. Liverpool's probably not going to make the Champions League this year. Shout out Evan Suss MC, who says, keep on doing our thing. UOPod.com. Subscribe to everything. Instagram, I'm Andrew Does, DOES, which is also a YouTube channel. Updating content there every week at this point. If you want to see me out in the streets, getting into trouble, asking things, triggering people. Eric's Report and Opine on Instagram. And uopod.com, patreon.com/uopod. Please go and sign up. Free podcast every week. Eric, bring us to church.
Buy my book.
Take me to church. Bend down, yeah.
Turn it up, Jordan.